Well, welcome to another video. I'm out in the field, about 800 to 1,000 k's from home here. We are doing some emergency stuff to this RV because we have to go to a funeral. One of the problems we have with it is the batteries keep going flat, and largely because it gets left sitting for a long period of time. So we are going to change the battery terminals that are behind here for some isolation type. And yes, I know we could use an isolation switch. There isn't a lot of room behind here to fit it, and also this has some unusual setups. We're also on a limited budget, so $50 an isolation switch is a bit out of the question. Let's get this moved forward and have a look at what we're dealing with. Now, unfortunately with this motorhome, when it's plugged into mains, this charger, or there isn't a charger that actually charges the main battery bank. There's also two batteries here with a positive that goes to here and a positive that goes to there. This vehicle won't start without both of them connected. They look like there's a series connection, but I'm not entirely sure, and it doesn't seem to be a parallel connection either. It's a little confusing as to how that's set up. In any case, we are going to replace this battery terminal here with one of these and find a way to stop it from shorting out to the chassis at the same time. These battery terminals fortunately do come off. We're going to unbolt from here and possibly unbolt from down there and take them back to the workbench and upgrade them. These are a 13mm socket, and they are isolated, so short circuiting shouldn't be an issue. Shouldn't being the key word. So I've got my hand in a position that helps prevent me from accidentally making contact with the negative chassis. It felt like a nylock, or it's got Loctite. Okay, we can remove this one. Let's see if we can get the other one off. Alright, so we got into the lower terminal here with the battery. That means there's three positives in here. That's confusing me. Don't fully understand what's going on with the wiring of this. I will have to map that out. And this battery cable is tangled under everything. Just going to make removing it a little more challenging than standard. Okay, there's one. That helps. Now we need this one, I believe, which is underneath the battery carrier as well. Alright, I worked out that my Barco ratchet spanner can fit in here. I get a few clicks out of it, which is enough. That side's out. Now we can unthread and remove, and hopefully not short anything out, and then we can re-terminate. Alright, we're going to do this. These are the biggest cutters I've got. I'm going to trim them off. I could undo the crimp, but really we'd like to get some exposed fresh copper. Now I'm going to take a blade here. I do have a utility blade somewhere, don't know where, so Leatherman it is. I'm going to take, how much do we need for our terminal? If we take the original terminals here too, we can have a look. This is what we're looking at, and if we rotate it like that, that's about the same size. I think we're going to fit in that space fairly well. The depth of terminal, we need about that much. So let's start about here and roll our way along. There we go. So exposed copper. Now we want to pack this down a little bit. We want to try and straighten these up. Normally I would use these like a solder cup. I mean, everybody's going to scream at me, crimp them, don't solder them. I don't have crimpers suitable with me, and this is not a high vibration environment. However, I've been doing this for about 9 years with my Land Rover, and haven't come across any fractured solder, but I also use leaded solder. Now, I don't have my big gas torch. I'd love to, but I've got Mr. Stoner Torch Blue, and some 60/40 tin lead solder here. This is what was in my kit. This is 1mm 60/40 tin lead with 2% flux core. Alright, now I'm going to try and heat this up, and as I feed some of this in, I'll keep the heat on, and the solder should help conduct the heat to the copper. We should eventually get a decent bond. This is going to take a while. Now we're up to temp. We're going to need a whole lot of solder in here. Going to soak it in like a sponge. Yeah, if it stopped absorbing it in there, I'd say it's pretty well in there. We don't want to melt off the insulation any more than we have to now. So we'll just let that go for a bit. That's used about half the gas in that torch too. So we'll let this cool off and we'll add some insulation. Okay, we did a little bit better with this one. We got it fully filled with solder, same as the other one, but we didn't melt the insulation so much. Now we're going to let it cool for about 10 minutes and then we'll see how we go. Alright, so we are going to attach these. There's a flat on the top. We're going to line these up this way so that things sit down. There's a bit of solder that has worked its way down there. We will deal with that in a moment. I think by the time we put some torque on these, that should bed in anyway. We've got a washer under here. So what we're trying to do by putting our terminal in this way round, when I can get the nut to bite on the bolt, there we go. Basically we're trying to keep the axis of this cable fairly close to the axis of that, so that it doesn't end up like sticking way up and around the corner, and makes our life a little easier, and also doesn't interfere with that so much. So we'll get the ratchet out and we'll tighten these up. For the record, these are 8mm bolts and they're nicely 13mm heads, I believe. So should be able to flip this one round, tighten them up. In the battery bay, we're going to remove these bolts entirely for a good reason. That then isolates the both halves of these. There's a little insulator in the middle here, and that bolt makes the contact between them. That means we can hook this up to the battery terminal and not worry about what this thing's doing as well. It does make it a little bit safer, and I like that idea. We're obviously going to connect the dead side first, of course, but we just do this as a matter of safety in the meantime. So this one should fit around there. We've got the caps back on the batteries to just facilitate better insulation, and we'll hook that one on there. We'll bolt the stuff back up. Alright, so I had to step out for a few minutes, and my spanners are so hot from sitting in the sun, they're physically burning me. I can't pick them up. So it's too hot. I'm going to bail out of here. Now, I busted one of these terminals trying to stretch it open because heat roasted brain of mine forgot that negative terminal is smaller than positive terminal. We've gone to go and acquire a post cutter to trim it down. I understand good practice is usually to disconnect the negative terminal, but for a number of reasons and electrical gremlins in this, we're doing the positives. And also because they're easier to get to. Reaching across under here to the negative terminal to isolate it's pretty difficult. And these are not all on the same ground. So we will find ourselves a valve seat cutter in a couple of days, and we'll finish this video off then. Right now I've got to go and get some gloves to pick up my spanner. Okay, we're a couple of days on, and I can update you on how things happened. We've ripped the seat out in the meantime. It was only a few bolts here to take the rails off. Now I almost started an altercation at a place called Bachman's Batteries because we wanted one of these tools, which they wouldn't sell to us, but said, you know, if you bring it in, you can use it while you're here. We ordered one of these in. Now the blokes at this place are clearly very experienced guys and stated the obvious that we should really be isolating the negative. But as you probably see from this weird layout, there's a few reasons why we might not do that. Primarily of which is access. You basically can't access this terminal or this one easily from opening the door. We're isolating the positive. There's always some weird, there's also a weird setup where the system is getting ground from another place. So positives are kind of what we want to do here. There are such a thing as positive isolation terminals like this, and they're red. These are the negative ones, and battery terminals are a different size. So we are doing a non-recommended way of doing things. Also, acknowledge that when I use this tool here, there is a good risk I may short things out. So we may pop the negative terminal off when we're doing this. Now, to give you a bit of an idea here, this tool has a negative and a positive side. They are two different terminals. So we should be able to fit this on here, and it should go that way to scrape things off. And it is probably going to make contact there. We're going to do a few revolutions of that. So we're going to pull the negative terminal off. So while we're pulling this terminal off, I'm going to explain why I nearly started an argument with the guy. Wasn't that he didn't know what he was doing or that he was making bad recommendations or whatnot. It's the fact that I hadn't even finished my sentence and he's already going, no, 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 and telling me I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I hadn't even explained what I was doing at that point in time. And if you know me, I'm always going into shops asking to do unusual things. So when somebody jumps straight off the bat, makes an assumption about what I'm doing, they're nearly always wrong. And this guy met me with a level of aggression. I'm not sure if it's something about me or something about the area, but people here in Albury, I don't think I've had customer service people so fucking rude to me in the past. I don't know what it is about this place. Maybe I'm just, you know, pending a funeral and a little bit on the stress side, or it's really hot. I don't know. But yeah, this guy didn't really impress me. Their knowledge did, and their supply, and they've obviously been there for a long time and they do a great job. But his customer service was a little lacking. The demeanor on his face was also, I've had enough of this crap, I just want to go home. And it was, you know, last thing on a Friday, so not surprising. Anyway, the scenario where we might short things out is also one of the reasons why a lot of people say disconnect the negative. All right. This one is going to clean up on that side, all right? I'm going to go the correct way for a bit, and then we're going to go the other direction for a bit. See if we can shave a little bit off. Okay, so GoPros are a bit trash in low light, and it is getting a little dark. We have made progress. I have trimmed these down until the negative one fits, which is still a bit big for these terminals. However, the amount of surface contact we've got is still greater than the factory terminals, which were about a 1.5 or 2 mil piece of steel, without a lot of surface area on them. There's way more surface area on this, and these are much more robust. However, it's still technically wrong, so just keep that in mind. Now, I believe a nut has fallen off this one. I've got to put that back on as well. Now, these little bolts here have a square head. There's a notch in here they're meant to interface with. That's the correct way to do things. And we still have our negatives disconnected. Now, in a perfect world, that little notch in there is meant to interface with the head of that screw, or bolt rather, so that it does this nut up properly. And that nut is not quite the right size. Let's go to a 12 mil, and we'll tighten this up. I may need to use an open ender to hold that one. It's going to free spin. Do this one up. We'll get it tight and then we'll have a bit more of a chat. Okay, these are on. We're going to loosen these up but not remove them entirely. That should isolate that. We're going to do this one up nice and tight to pull that little insulator back in the bottom. Then we're going to loosen it up again. That should be off. Okay, now we can put our negatives back on. And we should, if we're right, we shouldn't see fireworks. Okay, now we've got this I prepared earlier, which is a twin voltmeter. We're going to wire this up somewhere, and we will come back and put a fuse on this too. But let's get this tucked in and attached somewhere. Alright, I'm in the midst of putting the voltmeter in, and I'm making some connections, and I'm using electrical clean and lube because these contacts are a bit dirty. And it does sort of help control the oxidization a bit. We're using a little ring terminal here on the auxiliary terminal of the ground. That should be good. And we've got one more ring terminal here to put on there somewhere. I've got to find a safe spot to hook it up to. Okay, we've got things working. We can do battery number 1. Let's have a look here, 12.6. Battery number 2 is also 12.6. And we can undo and turn off. Undo and turn off. I think I found a blown MIDI fuse in here too. We'll check that out while we're at it. Alright, let's check this fuse out. Continuity beeper. No continuity on that one, but continuity on that one. Alright, well, we'll pull that fuse out. We'll try and find a spare one. Okay, I'm finally done. I've managed to hide the wiring away in here. Haven't added the fuse yet. That 60 amp MIDI fuse is also blown. There is something wrong with the central locking in here. Maybe that's connected to the blown fuse. let's take a look here. We can turn you on, 12.6 on that battery. And we can turn you on there, 12.6 on that battery. Now, a couple of caveats here, or a couple of things. Yes, this is not the correct way to do a lot of things I've done here. I totally acknowledge that. However, given the available parts, which were limited to do this, this is the best way we can do it in the short term. Long term, when we go and find all the correct parts, which may need to be imported from overseas, because a lot of people don't carry these things, we will swap these for the properly sized positive terminals. We'll do that right, and we may even swap one of these over to the negative, should there be somebody wanting to isolate that as well. We do need to do something about this battery bracket here. Since he got this motorhome, which was second hand, that battery bracket has not been on properly. We need to find some nuts and bolts for that. We will come back and add a fuse on the negative little wire on that, probably like a 1/2 amp or something even smaller than that. Otherwise, everything in here is fairly neat. I've tucked the wires away so they're not going to rub and abrade and get in line with things. We'll come back with some proper wrapping and fix the rest up. But for the time being, that works pretty well. You can just lean in the door and see what the battery volts are doing. So to that end, it's dark. My GoPro's trash in the dark. So we're going to leave it here and we'll do another one. Pretty soon I'm going to a funeral. So that's what this is, getting things ship-shape enough to get to the funeral. See you later. Hope it was a good one.